Brooklyn Independent Television.
Coming up on Brooklyn Review.
I'm Brian Vines in Williamsburg, where a local artist is using her talents to change the lives of former child soldiers.
The G train has been temporarily extended by 5 stops, and there's now a campaign underway to make sure it stays that way. I'm Sherry Carabin. I'll have that story.
What Video Music Box did was it got the culture out there.
These stories and more next. Welcome to Brooklyn Review. I'm Brian Vines. In 2009, the Metropolitan Transit Authority lengthened the G train subway line by 5 stations, directly connecting several Brooklyn neighborhoods from north to south. Now the agency is planning to cut back on the additional stops. Sherry Carabin has the details of how elected officials are enlisting public support to keep the G train from turning into the ghost train.
It's good service, G-Train.
That's the way riders and elected officials want to keep it. A big part of that involves making 5 temporary additional stops on the G line in Brooklyn a permanent fixture.
I actually appreciate it because it makes it a lot easier for me to get to the city. Because I'm further into Brooklyn, it's another alternative to the F train, which doesn't run quite as well as it should.
The additional stations were added by the Metropolitan Transportation Authority in 2009, directly connecting those in Park Slope, Windsor Terrace, and Kensington to central and northern Brooklyn. A perk of sorts that grew out of the disruptions caused by the rehabilitation of the Culver Viaduct, which goes over the Gowanus Canal.
A byproduct of all the work they're doing on the line is that they couldn't use the express tracks here at 4th Avenue, which was where the G used to stop, not pick up passengers, just stop on the express track. They can't do that any longer, so they've had to move the place to park it at Church Avenue. And now, so they made the wise decision that since it was going to run all the way to Church, why not actually stop, open your doors, and pick up passengers, which is what they've been doing for many months now.
The problem is the changes are not permanent, and many believe that when the work on the Culver Viaduct is completed in late 2013 or early 2014, the extended stops will also come to a screeching halt. That's why transit activists like NYPIRG Strap Hangers campaign staff attorney Gene Rushinoff are giving the thumbs up to the 5-stop fan club. The campaign was launched in mid-March by New York City public advocate Bill de Blasio, along with elected officials.
We're big fans of the 5 stops that the G train makes now that it didn't make in the past. The line is much more useful for people going from Carroll Gardens to Park Slope to Windsor Terrace to Kensington, and we want it to be permanent.
It sounds as though your concern is that although these 5 stops are not on the chopping block right now, they could be in the future.
When they finish this project, the worst thing to happen would be that it went back to the way it was. It's common sense to extend the G train a little bit to make it more useful and make the line serve more neighborhoods.
If the changes don't become permanent, the G train will no longer extend to Church Avenue. One of the stations that would be lost is the 4th Avenue and 9th Street station, which this nearby salon manager says could mean fewer customers.
I've seen a little difference in the flow of people coming around.
If they go back to the way things were, that could possibly hurt your business.
Possibly. Can't say for sure, but yeah, possibly could.
Realtor William Duke says better transportation does make it easier to interest people in properties located in Windsor Terrace and Kensington.
Anything that extends transportation into Kensington or Windsor Terrace helps. There isn't a lot of transportation.
This Kensington resident is certainly hoping things don't change.
It used to do that a long time ago when I went to high school. I went to high school near Pratt Institute, and so I would take the G from 15th Street all the way there, and then they discontinued that and moved it further out, but I think it's more of a convenience for everybody to have it go to Church Avenue because it's a set, kind of this block of community. We all kind of hang out together, and so I think it's wise to go to Church Avenue.
But not everyone thinks the additional stops are a plus.
It isn't a great thing, not for the G train. I mean, it's more stops, so it has to slow things down a little bit. At least, how many stops? 15 minutes? At least 15 minutes. 5 stops, 2 minutes to stop, 3 minutes to stop.
In the meantime, those behind the 5-Stop fan club are hoping commuters will not only like them on Facebook, but will also weigh in with the MTA to let the agency know why they should keep the stations operating.
My discussions with New York City Transit that runs the subway system have been very positive on this. So they're not making a commitment. I don't want to say that, but they're really taking an open look at making this permanent.
This is Sherry Carabin reporting for Brooklyn Review.
Families United for Racial and Economic Equality, Fury, is furious about the New York City Housing Authority's refusal to correct unhealthy living conditions at several housing projects in downtown Brooklyn. They're taking their fight to the courts and to the street, and Tati Amara caught up with some of the group's leaders and a tenant who just wants a home that doesn't make her sick.
At a rally on March 1st, organized by Families United for Racial and Economic Equality, residents of New York City housing projects and their supporters were demanding change.
NYCHA, you better fix up our house, fix up our homes, fix up our apartments. Y'all get paid to do that.
And announcing a lawsuit to force the New York City Housing Authority to make repairs to tenants' apartments.
We're taking you to court, NYCHA. Come on, talk. We're tired of playing games because enough is enough is enough. Imagine if a private landlord told their tenant that we're going to fix the mold in 2 years, that we're going to fix the leak in your roof in 2 years.
I'm sick and tired of living this way.
That's almost how long Sharon Davis Knight waited for her repairs.
I'm not garbage. I deserve the niceties. I deserve to live in a nice place just like anybody else. Just because I'm here doesn't mean I'm trash.
She's been living in the Farragut houses for 20 years, but says it wasn't always difficult to get repairs.
When we first moved into this neighborhood, you put a ticket in, and within that week, some housing worker would come here and do the repairs. You didn't have to wait months and years. I got some friends that tell me they putting in for paint jobs and they giving them dates of December of 2013. That wasn't how it was long ago. When we first saw the problem was in that corner there. Fuzzy stuff started growing up there. Mold was here in the corners, in the corner of the tubs, right here. Right, so we start keeping the windows open. That cut it down.
But by the time we got to Sharon's house, it seemed all the repairs had already been made.
He fixed that, primed it, paint job.
Wow. And
just like that.
2 years you were waiting.
2 years, and they did start coming in here the day after I was on TV.
I would say maybe about 80–85% is complete. If they're not completed, they have like a firm date in the very near future. Yeah, yeah, almost all of them started. And we weren't surprised because we know that NYCHA does not like bad press.
Valerie Jean of Fury explained part of the problem.
A lot of veterans, a disinvestment in public housing, because the thought is, right, or for some reason people think that human beings don't live here, that the people who do live here are not deserving of quality housing or are not deserving of being treated with dignity and respect.
However, everything from budget restrictions to repair dispatch issues have been blamed for the Housing Authority's lack of response.
I mean, we've gotten so many different answers that we can't keep track. We have to make sure that the largest affordable housing stock that is available in New York City are preserved and protected and maintained.
Now they're moving. It's a shame that it took to go on the news for you to move your ass, but now they're moving.
The problem is how many more Sharons are out there right now that aren't getting the repairs done. I could spend my entire life trying to get all the repairs done in all these projects. There needs to be a bigger fix on this, and hopefully this is the start of that.
For Brooklyn Review, I'm Tati Amara.
The internet's latest sensation isn't a talking dog or celebrity nip slip or a video about stuff anybody says. It's a video about a man hiding in a jungle. Although he's a factor in our next segment, the story is so much bigger than that. It's a bumper sticker slogan that's come to life about thinking globally while acting locally. Lady Gaga, Justin Bieber, and Kim K's backside, the most popular celebrity searches on the web. So just how did an African warlord from halfway across the globe unseat these Hollywood heavyweights? Kony 2012 is a 30-minute documentary about Joseph Kony, head of the Lord's Resistance Army, a militia group formed in northern Uganda in 1987 to fight in a civil war that pit Bantu-speaking farmers in the south and east against herding and hunting Nilotic-speaking peoples in the north. What separates Kony from the run-of-the-mill war criminal is his army, comprised of child soldiers stolen away from their families. 6 days after being posted on YouTube, the video, produced by San Diego-based nonprofit Invisible Children, garnered over 100 million YouTube views, making it the most viral video in history. Kony 2012 asks viewers to contact elected officials and celebrities to urge them to act on behalf of these invisible children. Invisible to most of the world, but not to Mary Westridge.
My parents had a foreign exchange student years ago from Uganda, and he was a brother to us, and when he went back to Uganda, and it was during the time of Idi Amin, and we never heard from him again. And we assumed he was dead because he was a political person. Years and years and years later, my father got a call from him saying that he was from the Ugandan government, and my father said, well, the only thing he knew about Uganda was they had a foreign exchange student named Rex, and he said, I am Rex. Turned out he was in exile, and he helped form the government in exile with Museveni. He was coming to New York to the UN, and there was a meeting on former child soldiers. I, like the rest of the world, had never really heard about it, but then he came to visit me when he was at the UN and told me about this and invited us to visit him in Uganda.
It was a trip that would change Mary's life.
While there, I went to one of the the two rehab camps in northern Uganda and saw the situation. And my intention was just to come home and talk about it, just talk about it. And we went back the next year where I helped the kids paint murals of their ordeal. While there, we were approached by two kids, Joseph and Patrick, who said they wanted to go to school. Our intention for $350 a year, which is room, board, and tuition, our intention was to keep these two boys safe from recapture. We began to see that they wanted an education. They took this very seriously. It wasn't just a safety issue. It was their life and their future.
And with that realization, an idea was born, the Ugandan Children of Conflict Education Fund.
We have 7 have graduated from college, and we have 17 in college now. And I think in total we've educated about 65 people. Here's his photograph, and Joseph is the one who started us on this project. He just graduated from college, the Ugandan Christian College, with a degree in public health.
Just like Invisible Children, UCCEF is a 501c3 charity. But unlike the team behind Kony 2012, who reported $10 million in revenues last year, with about 37% of that money going to programming in Uganda, 100% of UCCEF's donations are directed towards educating former Ugandan child soldiers.
I never had a thought it would be like this, and my story is shocking to many ears. 9 years of wandering in the bush, and then a degree holder in engineering. Exclamation point.
Admittedly, it's an apples to oranges comparison. But Invisible Children raised $3 million last year for merchandise sales alone. while UCCEF relies on individual donors.
So what would it mean for you to have just 10% of that $3 million? If you had $300,000 right now at your disposal.
Well, I'd educate more kids.
Yeah.
You know?
Kids like Angela.
She was one of what was called the St. Mary's girls. And among people who know about the situation in Uganda, St. Mary's was a huge story. 137 girls were captured one night by Kony and his soldiers, and a nun followed them into the bush and begged for their return. He returned 100 of them and kept 37. And Angela was one of the 37. And I met her mother, Florence, at the World Vision Rehab Center where escaped and rescued child soldiers go. And she was a counselor and a matron for the girls, and she took that job in hopes that she would hear
her daughter
about her daughter.
Right.
And 11 years later,
her hope was realized.
Her hope was realized, yeah. And she is now working. Well, she's got her associate degree in social work, and she's working towards her a BA. And she is counseling young women in prison who were former child soldiers, who just couldn't live in society without, you know. So anyway, this is a success story. They're all success stories.
An illustrated success story, because Mary is an artist who creates portraits of the young scholars and sells them to help pay for tuition.
10 years ago, I painted pictures of tortured faces. This was one. And another. The person who reviewed this said that he liked the fact that it wasn't complete, because this child something had been taken from him.
10 years ago, there was anger and a sense of loss.
Oh, despair.
And despair.
Hurt. Yeah.
And now to the other side where it's in color and the smiles of return.
Yeah. Well, when I started doing careful drawings, they were on brown paper, and they were technically good because I can draw, but they didn't express the joy. And then when I went back this year, and I saw these smiling faces, I said, "Oh, color's missing." Yeah, and the color is back. The color is back in their lives.
Well, now that you're informed, we really hope that you get involved. You can go online and make a donation at uccef.org, or come out to the Figureworks Gallery in Williamsburg for the opening reception on Friday, May 11th. It's a process that began 6 months ago with a simple question: how could $1 million help improve your community? City Council members Brad Lander and Jumani Williams are using participatory budgeting to get residents active in investing in community.
People in District 39 are taking over the budget. Okay, not all of it, but $1 million from the district's discretionary fund.
$1 million is not enough to meet every need, but we really want everybody to come give ideas, take part, so we can get a really good range of ideas on the ballot and have hopefully all those different perspectives reflected.
It's called participatory budgeting, and over 100 people from Park Slope showed up to a meeting at the Old First Reformed Church to be part of the process.
It's not even really for us to hear from you, it's for us to hear from each other and move forward a process that's going to help us make decisions about what the projects are that we want to fund in the neighborhood with our own tax dollars.
So what money will you decide how to spend?
It works like this. Anyone from the community can make a suggestion for a capital project. The idea is then developed and goes through a couple of stages of voting before it can eventually be approved. At this meeting in Park Slope, step number 1 of that process was accomplished.
Yes. So more team facilities, activities for teams.
You don't need to be a professor or a PhD to be able to come up with good ideas. and good ideas of how to spend your own tax money.
It's a time when people's faith in government, unfortunately, is low. We wanted to say, you know what democracy is neighbors getting together, saying, here's what we want to see, here are the problems in our neighborhood, here's how we can solve them, here's how we want our money spent, and we should have real decision-making power.
New York is the second city in the country, first being Chicago, to try participatory budgeting. But there are 1,000 programs active globally.
We have the oldest democracy. We don't always have the most vital democracy.
The political process is the planning and the type of activity that take place, forums like this, like the community boards, like the school boards. That is the political process. Voting is at the tail end.
Councilman Lander hopes this will be the catalyst for more community involvement.
On one hand, there's a responsibility from government to the people, but there's also this responsibility amongst people to each other. If you want to see something happen, it can happen, but it's only going to happen if you get involved and do the work.
For Brooklyn Review, I'm Tati Amara.
Well, the complete list of ideas is back, and it's time for you to vote. So go to pbnyc.org for a complete list of voting times and locations. Now, in the early 80s, hip-hop was a relatively new phenomenon. But if you're a New Yorker of a certain age, you know that before you had a cable hookup, you had the box. Fast forward to now, when hip-hop is an art form and moneymaker on a global level, thanks in no small part to a Brooklynite who Melissa Rose Cooper met at the Museum of Contemporary African Diasporan Arts, or MACADA, in Fort Greene, where a new exhibit tells the story.
It was groundbreaking in the music world, and it's celebrating its 30th anniversary here at the Museum of Contemporary African Diasporan Arts in the exhibit, The Box That Rocks.
There were no other video networks when we first started. MTV says it started in 1982, but people didn't have cable, and MTV was like a cable show. So nobody had cable. It probably existed in like maybe 10 people's houses, but nobody had cable, so nobody saw it. This is before the cable explosion. So there were no other cable channels like MTV, BET, VH1, all those things that we have today. The thing about Video Music Box, it was the beginning of the music video genre.
Ralph McDaniels launched Video Music Box in 1983 as a way to educate people about what was going on in the community while providing them with entertainment at the same time.
People didn't want to necessarily listen to information, but we needed something to draw them in. At some point, we used to get at the TV station these live performances of R&B groups. And I said, look, let's take some of these groups, put them together with information, and then we'll start to get people, young people, just to just be aware of what's going on in their community. What Video Music Box did was it got the culture out there. Hip hop was brand new. People wanted to know, what is this hip hop thing all about? And they got a chance to see it on Video Music Box.
The exhibit at MACADA is on display through May 28th and showcases a mix of photos, paintings, and digital art, all inspired by the contribution of Video Music Box.
This piece is a bit of a mouthful. It's a browser-based interactive infographic created by an artist named Tahir Hempel. And what it does basically is it tracks dimensions of Champagne and hip-hop music over a 20-year period from 1980 to 2010. It's called Champagne Always Stains My Silk. The funny thing about Video Music Box is that when I started watching it as a kid, I really didn't look at it from the context of it being, something that, that marketers, whatever, want to use as a way to talk to people. I always looked at it as an opportunity to break through for being from the hood, quote unquote. So it was very exciting for me to turn on Video Music Box because there was always the possibility that I was going to see someone I knew on the show. Or if I didn't know them, I definitely was going to learn some new dance or some new, fashion cue from somebody. So that was exciting for me as well.
Video Music Box not only was a pioneer in the hip-hop world, but it also created the buzz for trends that are still popular today.
We came up with the word shout out. And we would say, you want to give a shout out to your friends. And people would, and once we did that the first time, everywhere we went, people would go like, I want to give a shout out. And we didn't think that it was going to catch on like that.
Growing up in East Flatbush, when I was between the ages of 6 to 15, I guess you could say, it was always a custom and a tradition to come home after school, to check out Video Music Box, to walk through Albee Square Mall, and to actually live hip hop, but then to go home and to check out Video Music Box. It was really an opportunity for us to see what the latest fashions were, the latest new words like fresh and butter.
The legacy of Video Music Box continues to live on, and the Box That Rocks hopes visitors will appreciate its contribution to hip-hop.
The Box That Rocks exhibition is really a huge honor for us to honor the legendary Ralph McDaniels and 30 years of Video Music Box. And it was just so fantastic to bring the artists together to do a tributary exhibition to hip-hop and to Ralph McDaniels' participation in creating Video Music Box and creating a platform for the ushering in of the hip-hop movement.
I think the most important thing, that especially in our community, that we understand the history, where we came from, and that's what this is. It's just a celebration of the years. Nothing is really new. We've created something that was groundbreaking, and I always want to inspire people.
For Brooklyn Review, I'm Melissa Rose Cooper.
Now, before we get out of here, we wanted to bring you an interview with New York State's newest senator. But after polls closed on the March 20th special election to fill the seat of disgraced former state senator Carl Kruger, lawyer and Kings County Republican Vice President David Sturobin was 120 votes ahead of three-term Democratic City Councilman Lou Fidler. But with 757 paper ballots to count, both candidates in the highly contentious contest declared victory. The official tally won't be in for another week or so, but we hope to have the senator on very soon, because in 9 months after redistricting, the 27th Senate District will no longer be. It's being carved up into a new district that will include large parts of Midwood and Borough Park. And both David Sturobin and Lou Fidler could run for that seat, setting up a rematch. So we'll keep you informed and definitely be watching that one. But until then, that's the end of our Brooklyn Review. If you missed anything or you want to check it out again, visit us at our home on the web at www.brickartsmedia.org. We're also on Facebook, iTunes, you can Twitter us, and check us out on YouTube. We'll see you next time. Bye now.
Watch this and other Brooklyn Independent Television episodes online at brickartsmedia.org/BIT.